iScrappers, Tom from the iScrap app. Today is Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. Hopefully everyone is doing well, scrapping often, and staying very busy. And don't forget to drink water, that is. Drink lots of water and lots of liquids that have electrolytes in them to help you maintain that liquid inside of your daily diet, especially when you're outside with some of this heat that we're experiencing across the country. With 100-degree weather, we tell all of the people on our team, try to drink half of your weight in ounces of water every day just to make sure that you're staying healthy. And there's your daily tip from Tom. But let's talk about scrap because that's why you're here. Scrap over the last week has been really strong. Couple things that we want to go over. We're going to talk about the copper prices jumping up. We're going to talk about the catalytic converter price kind of being on a little bit of a down and a little bit of an upswing all in the same breath. Steel prices haven't gone down further but still haven't recovered from the drops that we saw in June. And we're going to talk about some of the questions that you have asked us that we're going to go over during this feed. Now, every Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern, we try to go live to let you know what's going on with the markets, and we welcome all of your questions about scrap that you have so we can get you answers and give you a better market knowledge of what's going on both from a scrapyard perspective and also just from the iScrap's perspective, looking at all the different avenues that we have. You know, we deal with people across the country, whether it's scrap yards, scrappers. We deal local here in the tri-state area with our scrap yard. And then our team at rrcats.com buying catalytic converters from all over the place as well. So when we're doing these things, it gives us a really good feel to where the market is, and we get to talk to a lot of different people to see what they're doing differently than the scrapyard next door, or scrapper to scrapper from each scrapper to see what they're doing. So it gives us a really good industry knowledge and insight to help you learn more about the markets and make more money with your scrap. So let's talk about everyone's favorite metal, and that would generally be copper. While it could be gold, we're going to go with the metal that you're going to get a little more often. Now, copper prices have decreased about 4 cents this morning, but overall we're looking at about 18-month highs in the market. Definitely hit 2020 highs earlier this week. When we woke up on Monday morning, we saw the copper COMEX approaching 297, and that's dipped down about 10 cents from there. Now, many people ask us about the copper COMEX that they see online, and we try to tell them a couple of pieces of news. Number one, you really should ignore it. If you look at the trading numbers, it's like looking at the oil prices per barrel. How does that translate into the gasoline prices? You know, there's a company out there, Gas Buddy, that has national averages for gas. That will give you a much better idea on where the prices are, opposed to looking at the price of oil per barrel. Same thing goes for scrap copper. When you look at copper COMEX trading prices, you see these really high prices and you say to yourself, boy, why am I not getting that price at the scrap yard? How does the scrap yard get that price? What are they looking for? And what you need to look for is the information and the prices that we give here at iScrap. Not only do we have hundreds, if not thousands of people every month reporting prices that they've received actively at their yard, but we also are tuned in more as a scrapyard ourselves to where the market prices are, knowing that everyone has to make money every single step of the way, and that's where some of the prices that you might see COMEX-wise get diluted. Now, there's a couple of things that we look for. With copper COMEX out there, spreads have to be put in, and those are generally trading numbers of 40 to 50,000 pounds. So when you're selling 400 or 500 pounds, 30 or 40 pounds, you have to take that into account. If you have dirty materials such as number 2 tubing that has paint, solder, or debris on it, insulated wire that has insulation, plastic, or possible like aluminum BX that have 2 different metals kind of inside there. These are things that you have to look for before really getting a good idea on where the price charts are. Now, our pricing page at iScrap, our national price averages, gets updated every day, gives you the average price that people are getting for their different metals across the country, and will give you a better idea and a better gauge on what you're getting versus what most people are getting on average. Here in Rockaway, our yard is paying $2.55 a pound for Bearbright. But that doesn't mean that you might get $2.55, because we've talked about this many times. The more you travel, the more costs are involved. Some scrap yards don't have larger amounts of volume, so they can't afford to pay more. Some scrap yards want to be able to make more money. All of those are their prerogative and their location that kind of makes their prices the way that they are. So these are the little big things that we look for to be able to gauge where the markets are, where the markets are headed, and then give us a much better idea of what we should be looking at moving forward. Now, overall, the copper prices, while down this morning, are up in the last week, and we're very happy with where they are. After having a nice stabilization for 2 to 3 days, we saw most scrap yards increasing their prices, but we also saw a lot of material getting flooded into the market with the unexpected 10 to 15 cent increase that came over the last 10 trading days. Now, that increase definitely was unexpected, but it could lead to more positive signs where the manufacturing side of things is beginning to pick back up again worldwide amid all of the COVID-19 things that are going on, and will give us a much better idea on where we are moving forward. Now, we look at all the different markets, whether it's oil prices, copper prices, gold prices, which have remained over $1,800 an ounce. We also look at different things that have little bits of information that get pushed in there, like mortgage rates, stock market pricing, and all of those things mixed together, the manufacturing index. All of these things make up the different pieces of information that we put into our puzzle to help come up with a summary every week to give you a better idea on where the markets are. So when we have the information pushed out and we hear questions from you like we're about to answer, we love being asked questions to help push us to give you more information and to do better day after day. Looks like we have a question, Virginia.
We have a question from Corey.
Okay.
He said, "Hey Tom, hope all is good."
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Hope it's going well by you too.
And he asked, "Where do you see aluminum going in terms of prices going up?"
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for the question, Corey. The aluminum market, and there's another question that we have that will kind of address the aluminum pricing here that Corbin has asked us, hearing over the weekend that there was an aluminum shortage and if there's any details on that. So let's talk about that. There are certain aluminum shortages, but not in the widespread effect that you would think. If you look at some of the supplies that are overseas, either tracked by the London Metal Exchange or just the news articles that we read about the massive amount of material in ingot form that the Chinese are holding, as well as many people in Mexico are holding. There is not a massive aluminum shortage. There might be a minor one. And some of the things that we have seen impacted, like the auto industry where they have been repurposed to make ventilators, there might be a little shortage of parts, but there certainly is not a shortage of metals going into them. Yeah, we have seen copper prices increasing. That reason primarily has been some of the fear on the mining operations overseas. Whether it's a mining operation that gets held up because COVID-19 spread throughout many of the miners, or the ore that's coming out isn't getting shipped and pushed overseas that quickly, again because of the COVID-19 outbreak. So all of these things have factored into some of the commodity prices. Yesterday's stock market, we saw a surge over 500 points. This morning we saw it jump at 300. Now it's in the 150 point up range. But we saw last week where the market started really high and ended really low. We also saw where it started really low and ended really high. These swings are so not normal. They are not what we want to see. They are not what we want to be able to feel. And because of it, it's made it very difficult for us to gauge where the markets actually are and what their needs are moving forward. So we're watching, paying attention to, but not fully understanding and knowing where they're going to be moving going forward. So we watch these markets, we try to figure out where they are, and the aluminum markets right now, because of the tariffs, because of the political environment, because of the lack of manufacturing and consumer good being purchased going down, because of the auto sector changing a lot of what they're doing to focus on ventilator creation. A lot of these things are going to affect a lot of the prices, but we haven't seen anything crazy on the upside in the recent months. Really, it's been about 2 years since we saw really positive news about any of those aluminum markets. So thank you, Corey and Corbin, for the questions. Now, Rob said, hey, how do you test for cobalt? And that's a really great question. Unfortunately, there is not an app for that, so you're generally going to need an XRF analyzer, which most people don't carry on their tool belt in their car, and you can't buy it at Home Depot. With these tools costing tens of thousands of dollars, you're going to have to bring the cobalt, or at least what you think is cobalt, to your scrapyard, or call ahead of time to see if they have an XRF, as not all scrapyards do. These analyzers use X-ray radiation detection. They're able to go up to the metal, zap it, and it pulls out the chemistry by shooting little X-ray beams into that metal and giving you an idea of where it is. So other than that, unless it's kind of stamped right on there, which it could be in different metals, but if it's a smaller piece, it probably won't be there. You're going to have to reach out to your scrapyard to see how their process works. Now, Dion asked us, hey, good afternoon, Tom. Is it worth taking ceiling fan apart motors apart for the aluminum, the copper, and the steel? Or should we sell them as a dirty motor price? And I'll answer that question 2 different ways. You will make more money when you take copper electric motors apart. Okay, that's number 1. You will not make more money if you take aluminum wound electric motors apart. That's number 2. Number 3, how much is your time worth and how much time do you have? Let's say you have a 10-pound electric motor. Let's even double it, a 20-pound electric motor. On average, electric motors yield between 8 and 15% copper. So let's make it a nice even 10%. On a 20-pound motor, 2 pounds is going to be copper, and let's say that that's going to be a number 2. 2 pounds of number 2, national average around $1.80 per pound, $3.60 worth of copper. 18 pounds of steel, let's just call it 5 cents a pound to round up, that's 90 cents. Add the 2 together, that motor could be worth, if taken apart, $4.50. Now that 20-pound motor at the national average of about 8 to 12 cents is probably worth $2 as is, so you have to now value your time. How much time does it take you to take the motor apart and essentially double the value of it? Does it take a minute? Does it take 5 minutes? Does it take an hour? If it takes an hour, I can't imagine that anyone would sign up to work for $2 an hour, so you're not going to want to take it apart. If it takes you 5 minutes, well, 5 times 12 is 60 minutes. That means over 12 times 2, $24 an hour would be the number. So if you're making $24 an hour or less, it might be worth your time depending on time versus work versus reward. So those are little things that you have to do internally that we can't do for you other than spell the numbers out and give you a better idea. Another question, Virginia.
We have a question from Jed.
Great, thanks, Jed.
He said, I had some bronze picked up the other day, but my yard doesn't buy it as that. What would it be considered, number 2 or number 3 copper or something else?
Jed, that's an impossible question for us to answer without any more information. Was it a bronze propeller? Was it scrap bronze from plumbing? Was it bronze wire? Was it EDM wire? Was it number 2? Do you have the percentages on it? So asking me how the scrapyard should have bought it, I can't imagine that they would upgrade your bronze to a number 2 because they would be losing money. So I don't know without more information. So if you have it, please ask, as we'll be live for another 10 minutes. So we had another question. I heard a rumor that the main scrap buyer out of Chicago is going out of business, where the Chicago scrap prices have plummeted. I'm in DeKalb, Illinois, where the price for shred is still $110 per ton. So is that rumor true? That was the question. Now, we've heard about 2 or 3 different scrapyards in the Chicago area that have run into some trouble, but their trouble doesn't really go with the price changing drastically. If a scrapyard wants to try to make more money and widen their spreads, well, they're going to widen their spreads. If they're looking to just have a fair spread, then they're going to have a fair spread. And that's where you need to use the iScrap app, report prices that you've received at different scrapyards to be able to give you a better indication, a better market feel on where the market is, where it's headed, and what you're receiving versus what other people are receiving. So that should give you a much better idea. Now, I'd like to talk about the catalytic converter market and some of the prices that we look at. Our team at rrcats.com, that's rrcats.com, is busy quoting catalytic converters as we speak. So if you want to be able to text us pictures, send us an email, you can always go to rrcats.com. Now, the 3 base metals that we look at in catalytic converters that we've talked about before, rhodium, palladium, and platinum, have had a little bit of an upswing, but it's been a little torn left and right over the last couple of days. Now, I'm looking at a price chart here that gives me an idea of where the market prices were, and I'll give you a little feel of what I see versus where they are. Now, as we create better emission-based cars that have less exhaust fumes going in, you're going to need a better catalytic converter, and that's going to be a good thing for all of the cars that are being made every single day. They should have more of these precious metals in them. So you might be able to compare, let's call it a Ford F-150 from 2000, their cats versus a Ford F-150 in 2020. You should go under the assumption that the one in 2020, those cats are going to be worth more money on average each than the ones in 2000. But what you also have to look for is, as technology gets better, a Ford F-150 might have had 4 cats 20 years ago. Today they only have 2. So while the price per cat is up, the volume could be down because technology does such a nice job. Now let's just take rhodium for instance. On July 8th, rhodium prices were $7,950 per ounce. They topped out on July 12th at $8,075. They dropped down to $7,550, and today they're hovering around $7,750 per ounce. So that 1 to 5% swing, depending on which day you look at, is a bit of a big swing, but kind of in line where some of the commodity prices are. Palladium, relatively consistent, $1,906 per ounce on July 8th, $1,953, which is up about 2.5% on July 11th, and today at $1,951, about even. So that's a good sign. Platinum, which is generally the most important metal for the catalytic converters as it is used most often. July 8th, $841 per ounce. That was the high price. Since then, we've seen about a 4.5% decrease, where the market today is at $806 per ounce. So we watch all of these market prices, as you can see by this chart, gives you a little bit of an idea on what's going on. So when we look at these different market prices, it lets our team know what to look for and how to quote cats accordingly based on the market changes that happen every minute and every hour, day to day. It looks like we have a couple of more questions that we'd love to answer.
Jed followed up about his bronze.
Great, Jed.
He said that it was tableware and plates that said bronze on the bottom.
Okay, so that's good information, and there's a couple of things that you need to look for. When you have tableware, silverware, plates, serving platters, cups, bowls, things like that, very often they'll have stamps on the bottom. Not only who made them, but also what the metal is. Now, for whatever reason, often when these things are created, they're called one thing, but in the scrap world, they actually are something else. That's like talking to an electrician about Romex wire, and you telling them that Romex is 68% ICW number 1. Well, an electrician's going to look at you like you have 4 heads, because they're going to say, what are you talking about? And you'll say, well, I'm talking about Romex, of course. Well, Romex is 68% copper, 32% plastic on average. ICW, insulated copper wire, number 1, bare bright inside. That might not be something that electricians see every day, but it's something that scrappers look at every day and sell by. Where on the silverware and the plating side of things, sometimes you might see it say sterling silver or plated silver. You always need to scratch it with the file, and we'll make sure to send you a link to a video that we've done before or blog talking about the file test. And bronze could actually be number 2 or number 3 copper. It could be yellow brass. It could just be called bronze inside of the manufacturing and retail world, but in the scrap world, it might be something better, worse, or a little bit of the same. Another question, Virginia.
We have a question from Frank.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
What do you see clean ACRs doing in price?
Sure. So as the summer literally heats up, we have seen those ACR prices increasing with no help from the aluminum market. ACRs, aluminum, copper, radiators. As the copper prices have increased, we've seen the national average for ACRs climbing in the mid 80-cent range right now. 82, 85, we did see a high at 97. We saw a super high at 101. So as the summer climbs, of course, there's going to be more air conditioning coils that are going to be breaking. More people are going to be replacing older units. So you're going to see more ACRs coming out there. Pricing wise is going to be dependent on the aluminum and the copper market. So if you see large copper swings, you'll see large ACR pricing swings. If the aluminum market stays where it is, then you shouldn't expect much help from the aluminum side of things. Now, gold prices have remained over $1,800 per ounce, like we mentioned earlier, and that should help your electronics, but in reality, many electronics were being exported to Europe and to China to be refined for the gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and other precious metals that are inside them, or put on them, or inside of the chips. As the gold prices have increased, as COVID has continued to have its squirrely head all over the place, the export market has severely dried up. While we're still exporting materials for scrap, more and more things are going to be staying within the country, which is going to depress some of the electronic scrap because that provides less outlets for e-scrappers to be able to sell to. So we're looking at these things. A couple more questions.
Yep. Rich said, nice to catch you live.
Great, thanks, Rich.
What are your thoughts on cats, and what would you tell those that have 1,000 or more sitting on?
Great. So if you have 1,000 or more cats, we would love to be able to talk to you through our team at rrcats.com. And if you want to give us a private message, we'll reach out to you there. If you have over 1,000 cats, what you're going to want to do, and give the team at rrcats.com a chance to buy them, is try to sell them based on material recovery versus a day-to-day price. And what we like to do with our larger customers that are selling us hundreds or thousands of cats at a time is to be able to lock in a set of prices and then pay them based off of the recovery in a completely transparent system, which makes you feel good and makes us feel good. We'll go over that, but you want to find someone that you're comfortable with. Selling them piece by piece will net you a quick cash in your pocket or in your bank account, but you might be able to make 5 to 7% more money when you have volume like that and are willing to wait 2 to 3 weeks for material recovery, which is tracked, put into spreadsheets, and sent to you afterwards. So we appreciate that question as well. Now, scrappers, we have a couple more questions, and don't forget, every Wednesday at 1 p.m. we like to go live, and on Sundays in the afternoon we post a video of prices that have been reported to us over the last 7 days. It's always a couple of minutes long, gives you a better idea on some of the different markets, and you get to see my face one more time. We got another question.
Matthew asked, what is the average of extruded aluminum?
So extruded aluminum is not an actual grade, Matthew, and we've talked about that recently. Think about extruded aluminum like baking cookies. You put the dough, you put into kind of a mold, you press it through, and then you chop those little stars off, right? That's an extrusion process. Or making pasta. You make the dough, you put it through a pasta maker, and all the different spaghetti comes out. That's extrusion. That's a process, not a grade. So you need to know what grade you have. 50-52, 60-61, 60-63. Is the material painted? Is the material bare? Does the material have stainless or steel screws attached to it? Is there plastic? These are questions that you need to be able to answer to get a true extruded price from your scrapyard. Now, if we're talking about a regular mix and you don't know what it is, figure you're looking at 22 to 28 cents a pound, but it could go into the sheet category. You can take an aluminum window, for example. That is extruded aluminum, but it generally is filled with paint, counterweights, lead pieces, die cast, zinc, screws, rubber, caulk, insulation, wood, and the list goes on. So these are things that you want to look for, where extrusion is not a grade, it's more of a description. It's like saying that you drive a GM car. Which one? Suburban, Aveo? Is it a different? You don't know unless you have an exact. I drive a GM, 1500 Sierra. Well, you still got to throw the year in there to get an exact price on what it's worth if you're looking to trade it in. Could be a 95, could be a 2015. Price is going to change on all those specific questions. So those are things that you need to be able to look for. Now, scrappers, we try to go live every Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern, and if you don't have time to tune into our Wednesday updates, never fear, we always put these on YouTube afterwards, and you can always scroll through Facebook to see some of the questions that other people asked. Ask questions yourself, as every other week we try to do a Q&A session like we did today to give both of us a little better feeling of what you're looking to see and what we can give to you to help you make more money with your scrap. If you have not updated or downloaded the iScrap app for your Droid or iPhone, please make sure to do so today, as we send out push notifications with different market increases, decreases, or other ideas that can help you make more money. This is Tom from the iScrap app. Today is Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. We appreciate you tuning in. We look forward to earning your questions, listening to your stories online, and until next week, I'll scrap you later.